Welcome everybody to the American Space Museum. I'm Marquette. We're so glad you're with us to stay curious. Today in our house, we're recording this wonderful program with two astronauts, two of 617 humans who've orbited this Earth. Mr. Roger Crouch here beside me and Mr. Winston Scott over here. And we've got Roger's wife, Ann, who is part of the Quilts of Valor Foundation, who has a very special dedication to Winston Scott that we're going to do here. And all of you at the Quilt of Valor Foundation, we hope that you enjoy this and also find your way to the American Space Museum sometime like Roger and Winston have. And Winston's been in here many times. Hello, everybody. How are you?
Great.
Great.
Hi,
Great.
hi, thank you.
Good to have you here, Winston. We were going to talk to Japan astronauts today, but I mean Japan kids, about your experience in space with two Japanese astronauts, and that hubbub with the Microsoft whatever went wrong, grounded some flights out of Japan. So, and you were going to Roger, your wife Ann's here for a very special presentation for Winston, and I'm just going to turn it over to her, and then we're going to come back and talk to these two astronauts kind of about current events and just some stuff that's going on at Kennedy Visitors Complex, because that's why Roger's here. He's one of the astronaut encounter astronauts. You come quite frequently. Roger, you must enjoy that, talking to people that love meeting an astronaut.
It's a real privilege to be able to do that. I remember when I first met an astronaut, and here I was, a little old country boy from Tennessee, and it's just an obligation that I feel to talk to people about what their options are as a career and how never giving up really makes a difference in your life.
Absolutely. One message I give, because I'm a baby boomer, I say, don't go into liberal arts like I did. Make some money, be an engineer, okay? Because I was going to be the next Woodward and Bernstein with my camera. And you all laugh a little bit because we grew up in that era there of Watergate and wanting to save the world with investigative reporting. But only money, and that's for the people that are on TV with the makeup on there, and they're not me. So, Ann Crouch, very nice to meet you, and I'm a fan of what you're doing here. So I'm just going to step off here and give you the center stage for a wonderful something you have for Winston.
Okay. Thank you very much. As Mark said, I am a team leader for Quilts of Valor in Washington, D.C., and Roger asked if I would award Winston a Quilt of Valor, and I said absolutely. The Quilt of Valor started in 2003 when a mother made a quilt for her son that was deployed to Iraq, and since then we have made over almost 400,000 Quilts of Valor have been awarded to date.
Wow.
And it says the quilt is an expression of gratitude meant to thank and comfort you. They honor you for leaving all you hold dear to service, whether in time of crisis or in time of peace. This Quilt of Valor unequivocally says thank you for your service, sacrifice, and valor in serving our nation. So here we go. Roger's going to help me hold it up. Eagle's in the right direction. I think that's right. Is it right? Yeah.
Beautiful.
It is. That's beautiful.
Wow.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that is gorgeous. Look at those colors. I love the blue sky there,
vibrant.
Winston.
Yes, absolutely.
Yes.
Turn it around and see the back. Now this is a quilt that I made. I work with a group of women that there's about 10 of us. We're called the Treasured Peacemakers, and we focus on Quilts of Valor and quilts for children that are in the military and in hospitals.
Very
Okay,
nice.
and
Yeah,
put
turn
that
that
on your
around. One
shoulder.
more picture with that.
Okay.
Turn around there. Bold American colors there, Winston.
And they match my jacket.
They certainly do.
Yes, indeed.
And well, your wife Marilyn says it matches the decor in the living room, though. Is what you? Gorgeous. Thank you.
So the label.
And
Pardon?
The label.
Oh, the label.
oh, Quilt of Valor label on there,
It'll
huh?
say who made it, who quilted it, who pieced it, and all that.
Oh, neat. That's not. Yeah, hold that up, Winston. We didn't.
And
Sure,
walking
bequeath to
instructions.
you there. And that's some official stuff there. All right. Thank you.
Great.
Sweet.
It
Good.
comes with, let me see if we have a certificate here.
If there's some quilters out there or know some quilters, can they participate? How would they get involved in that? Ann?
They can call a local group. You can get on Quilt of Valor Foundation and find a local group.
Uh-huh.
And this is certificate Captain Winston Wynn Scott, United States Navy, July 22nd, 2024. The Quilt of Valor Foundation wishes to recognize you for your service to our nation. We consider it our privilege to do so. Though we may never know the extent of your sacrifice to protect and defend the United States of America, we award you this Quilt of Valor as an expression of gratitude from a grateful nation.
All right. Well,
All
thank
right,
you very,
yeah.
very much.
And
Yes,
thank you for
indeed.
your
Excellent.
service.
Where's
Well,
it
thank
over
you.
there?
Oh,
There
that's
we
right.
go.
I can do a
Like
photo
that.
like this.
All right. Good. Sweet. Well, everybody, you're witnessing something here very nice. Something that. All right. Like I said, I was a professional photographer, but I don't know how to use these very well. 3, 2, 1. Remember when I ran out of film, Winston? We were doing an event, and my card got all full.
I don't remember
no.
that. I don't
In there,
remember
so,
that particular event. but,
We were at Sun Tree at one of the last events. So no, and
Okay,
that's
It also comes with a pillowcase.
Beautiful.
pillowcase.
Thank you
All
for the on your
right.
bed. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yes,
Okay.
indeed.
That's cozy.
Mhm.
Okay, we'll put this back in the bag.
How many have you personally done, Ann, of these
I
Quilt of
think I've
Valors?
probably done close to 50.
Excellent.
And
sounds like
before
a
I got
bless you.
involved in actually awarding them, you used to be able to ask for a destination, and mine would go overseas. They would go to veterans hospitals.
Mhm.
So I've got quite a few
Right.
that did that also. Want me to take this
Yeah,
with me?
here,
Yes.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. Sit down there a
before-
second. Just
Yeah,
let me-
before you go, let me formally thank you and all of the ladies and men of Quilts of Valor for this honor. It truly is an honor. You know, I consider my military experience, going into the military, was the smartest thing I ever did. Because growing up in Miami at the time that I did, and some of the challenges that were existing in my neighborhood, the military allowed me opportunities that I never would have had I not gone into the military. So 27 years on active duty, in my case, the United States Navy, but you can't go wrong with any branch of the military you go into. So I'm really happy and very honored to receive this Quilt of Valor
Well,
award.
we really
So
appreciate
thank you
your
so
service.
very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And what pattern is chosen? Is that up to the quilter? or-
Yes.
So there's different
They
patterns.
really want you to do red, white, and blue. They don't want you to do flowers or anything like that. So, and we just pick our own, and I do a
I
lot
love
of
it.
different ones.
Yeah.
So,
I
yeah,
love the eagle and the red, white, blue, the flag, and absolutely.
they're fun to make. And
Uh-huh.
I retired, so that's what I do.
And how often do you let Roger in your little quilt cave there? Is he allowed in there to
Well,
with anything?
sometimes I ask his opinion of something, but it's pretty crowded in there with just me. So
Roger, I understand
I believe
quilters don't.
patients holding up the
Ill.
quilt.
there you go. You see his fingers and his toes.
I understand quilters don't throw away a scrap of fabric anywhere.
No, we
True,
don't.
but neither do I. So.
You learn. Huh? So how'd you two meet? Tell us that.
We met at NASA headquarters in Washington, D.C.
Uh-huh.
and we worked together for a couple of years, and just that's how it started.
Well, good. And do you come when Roger? You're pretty frequent, 2 or 3 times a year here as the astronaut counter. You always come with him.
After I retired, I did, and I have my rounds. I do all the quilt shops in the area, you know.
Good. Well, next time you come, I want to show you something, and we'll talk about it later. I've got
Okay.
a quilt from about 8 years after the Civil War,
Wow.
made out of that pulled stuff, made out of torn, tattered clothes, I guess. it
Okay,
is.
well, yeah.
There's a name for it. Somebody when I was going to Ohio State,
Right.
the lady that I rented a room off of gave that to me.
Wow.
Miss Helen, I'll never forget
She's
that.
very valuable by now.
Yeah, we'll check it out.
Yeah.
there.
Collector's
Dave.
item.
But love talk quilt. But thank you for doing this presentation. We're going to make sure Quilts of Valor get a copy of this.
Okay.
And I'm going to have you sit over here and talk to.
One last thing I'd like to
Yeah.
say
Sure.
is if anybody is interested in nominating somebody for a Quilt of Valor, you can get on the website. It's quiltofvalorfoundation.org. And there's drop downs that you can look for a nomination, and you can fill that out, and it'll work its way through the system and go to the closest group in that state.
There's the website right there for everybody to see. And boy, almost 390,000 quilts. Over what period? When did this start?
2003.
And who started it?
A woman that made a quilt for her son.
Her husband in Iraq, you said.
Yeah.
Son.
Son,
Iraq,
yeah.
you said there. Wow. So, wow. 11 years.
It
Do
almost
the math.
felt
There's a
Yeah.
lot
That's
of
incredible.
quilting
There's a lot
going
of
on
quilting.
there. So,
Absolutely.
well, Ann, thank you so much for doing that here, Marty.
Does Roger have a quilt?
He's not military,
I
so
think there's
no.
military.
But he does have
Doesn't
a t-shirt quilt, a space one.
All right. Yeah, I've got a lot of space T-shirts that need to be made into a quilt.
There you go.
I think you reach a certain age, you don't need any more T-shirts. I've reached that, right, Winston?
I know what you mean. Absolutely.
Ann, thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you for being
having
on
me.
here. You're
Okay.
welcome.
Thank you.
What a nice serendipity having two astronauts in the building. We're always blessed to just have one. Roger Crouch beside me, STS 83 and 94.
Yeah.
Did I say those right? That was the repeat ones. I love switching from blue to red back and forth because it's like a psychedelic patch when you do that on there, Roger. And then Winston Scott, 2 flights with 87 and 72, 3 spacewalks. We're going to talk just briefly a little bit about their careers there a little bit. Let's see here. I've got my cheat sheet here. We wanted to let everybody know that we use Winston as a promo for our plea for our nonprofit there, that you can donate just increments from $20 up to $500 by clicking there on YouTube that you're watching there. You can make comments. If you got a question, I can try to get it back to you from Winston sometime when I see him out there on the campus at the Kennedy Space Center Visitors Complex. Wanted to let you guys know that we always love the shuttle era. We are enamored with the flights, the people like Marty Winkel on our Streamlabs production here, worked on the SSME engines for 30 years with the launch process services. And so he too is a what we call national treasures here. Beautiful shuttles of the month. There's yours up there, 94, your last flight to space in July of 97, right?
97, yeah.
And interestingly, at the bottom left are Eileen Collins' 2 commands. The first was the Chandra Astronomical Observatory that was an abort to orbit. That was sort of a close one. They lost an engine. And then she flew the return to flight in 2005, STS-114. But that was grounded for a year because foam came off. And 121 was the second return to flight, the only launch of any crewed spaceship by America on the 4th of July. Is that one on there. So we love talking about that. And of course, the last flight of the program is in the month of July. So I want you guys to know that we're always thinking about our shuttle astronauts, men and women. We have different people come on and talk about the program, the different ones. We've got a whole cadre of monthly speakers, including Mikey Haddad that does payloads, a level 4 engineer, that guy there. So, and when your birthdays come up, we wish you a happy birthday. So check that out on our Facebook and our YouTube channel, guys. Anything to say about any of those missions ring a bell there to you? Your crewmate on 94 and 83, Don Thomas. That's his woodpecker mission in the middle. There's 70, also all Ohio astronauts on that. So
Don was real proud of the Ohio mission because everybody on there was from Ohio.
Yeah, when they had the governor unofficially make him that. But I'm a Buckeye from Findlay, Ohio, so I can relate to that. Yeah. I've even have Don sign my Cleveland Browns football.
Oh, my.
Got to have luck any way you can there.
Absolutely.
Are you root for the Dolphins?
You know, I have always rooted for where I lived. So from Miami, of course, then it was San Diego. and then at that time it was the Chargers. Then I was in Philly for a while. So wherever we lived is who we rooted for. So yeah,
That's
Dolphins back in the
loyalty.
day.
Yeah, you don't want to get in
Absolutely.
trouble rooting for not the home team. There you are in your handsome astronaut days up there. Not that you're not handsome now, but we look in the mirror, we expect to look like that, don't we?
Yeah, I give that picture to school kids sometimes, and not too long ago I gave it to a little third grader, and he looked at that picture, and he looked at me, and he looked at that picture, and he looked at me, and he said, "That might have been you at one time."
Is that right?
I was astute of him.
We feel like that a lot, don't we, sometimes on there? Looking back, gosh, of course, it's decades later, 30 years later. How does that fit with you, thinking back?
Well, it doesn't seem like 30 years for one thing. It just, it's a strange chronology of what's happened since then, because some things seem like a long time ago and other things seem like just recently, and the flight just seems like it was just recently. And, but so I've had a good life since then. I went back to NASA headquarters and worked there for about 10 years after I flew, and then I retired, and I really love retirement. I support Ann since she's retired doing all this quilting business, but it's just the talks that I give are basically a commitment to repaying the treasure and opportunities I had as an astronaut. I was colorblind, so I couldn't be I wanted to be a pilot like Winston, but since I was colorblind, I couldn't be a pilot for the military, and then I couldn't be a career astronaut. But then they finally started a payload specialist program, and you could be colorblind, and I applied for that, and 16 years later, I was almost 56 when I finally got picked to fly. I'd been trying for over 30 years to be an astronaut, and made it. And then I got 2 flights out of that, so I was pretty lucky.
Well, that's a great way to put it. There's what I've learned, Winston, hanging out with the astronauts at our astronaut encounter and so forth. There's a lot of twist of fates, a lot of things that happen that you can't control. That sometimes I don't know how you put up with it. Case in point, we had Marty, who wrote the book Space Shuttle Stories.
Tom Jones.
Yeah, Tom Jones. Tom Jones told us about getting ready for a spacewalk, Winston. You had 3 of them, and he and one of the female astronauts couldn't get the door open.
I remember that mission. Yeah.
And going through all that training, then having to be the spacesuit in that cramped area, and then get in the airlock, and they couldn't open the door, and they found out later a screw
backed out and jammed the gearing in the door. They just couldn't open it. Man, physically couldn't open the door.
When you come back to Earth, how do you deal with that? Like, my God, Tammy, a screw! Oh, geez, we couldn't. All that training.
I remember that mission. As a matter of fact, some of their EVA tasks got moved to mine because I flew shortly after that flight. Of course, they were assigned again later, and they both walked into space.
Yeah.
But I remember that occurrence, and some of their tasks were moved to my flight later on down the road.
Well, that'd be
I mean, what I'm saying is that's some mental discipline,
right,
to not really blow your top
Exactly.
about a simple thing like that.
Exactly.
Because they train for
Oh goodness, yeah, a long
a
time,
year.
a year or more for that flight, and that spacewalking.
yeah.
Able to do it. But better that the door stuck closed rather than stuck somehow open. So
Yeah, there you go.
There's that silver lining behind that.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. That reminds us of the engineer that looks at the glass. Does an engineer see it half full or half empty?
Exactly.
No, an
Absolutely.
engineer sees it's the wrong size glass. Right. We're talking Winston Scott, Roger Crouch here, 2 fabulous astronauts. Have that experience that only 617 humans have ever done. See, like our green screen here, the beautiful blue marble planet of ours there. And they all do great jobs talking about it. We're going to just kind of talk about some space history that's going on, current events. There's Winston on one of his spacewalks. That was sort of a drone spacecraft that you were testing out, right?
It was. It's called AirCam. You know, NASA has an acronym for everything. So Autonomous EVA Robotic Camera, or AirCam. That's the free flyer unit, which is called Sprint. And it looks like a soccer ball, but it's really a robot, and his eyes are television cameras. So I launched the robot, and our pilot, Steve Lindsay, flew it through a test profile. Everything that the robot could see was beamed back into the shuttle and back into mission control. And the idea is that you could use that robot to inspect the outside of your shuttle or your station or whatever. So the first time anything like that had been flown in space, and I'm launching it here in this this photograph.
Why didn't they continue that technology? You just
True to form, no funding.
no fun.
No funding to continue the development. And I always want to add, when I talk about this photo, had we had this during 103, we might have been able to use this device to inspect the outside of
107.
107.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, 107, Columbia.
Yeah.
Might have been able to use this robot to inspect the outside of Columbia and determine how much damage was there, where the damage was, and perhaps the outcome would have been different.
Yeah.
After 107, this picture was published in Aviation Week. That exact picture, and they talked about Sprint and talked about how we did not continue the development of Sprint and how it might have been used to aid in that mission.
Well, there's quite a few
Propulsion
things.
mechanism on that.
Yeah.
The prototype was coal gas, just compressed coal gas.
Okay.
The final design, we weren't sure yet. And the prototype also was hand flown, kind of like a model airplane, radio controlled airplane.
Uh-huh.
The final design was supposed to incorporate some programming so that you could program the robot to fly a profile on its own and then return to its nesting place or be controlled by a person. But this was flown by Steve Lindsay on joystick type controls.
Well, I consider both you astronauts doing things in the middle third of our great shuttle 3-decade era, because you were doing things to understand science and build the International Space Station. You both preceded that. Winston, you did a very important test on the suit. Made you the coldest person ever to walk, right?
Yes, my first flight on Endeavor. One of my jobs was to test improvements to the suit to handle the super cold temperatures that were going to be seen during assembly of space station. So during one of my night passes, I had to anchor my boots in the foot restraints, keep myself as still as possible so as not to build up a heat load. They rotated the shuttle to a deep space to get me as cold as possible. Then I had a rating scale. I had to activate these different devices on my suit and give an evaluation of how well they worked. I had thermal socks, I had battery-powered gloves, and I had a liquid cooling ventilation, LCVG bypass. Anyway, I activated all those things and gave them a rating scale, and it worked real well. And that suit is essentially the same one that's being used today on Space Station for their spacewalks.
They're still using the same
it's
suit?
the same suit.
Well, some might see that's a problem. We can't buy new suits, Winston?
Well, this was proved out because Space Station now is in orbit again where it's very, very cold. It's a high inclination orbit,
Yeah.
as opposed to the low inclination of shuttle. So high inclination, so it gets super cold up there, but the suit is apparently working real well for them.
So
Well,
were you comfortable, or did you get real cold?
No, I was comfortable. At the end of the 45-minute night pass, I could begin to feel just a little bit of chill beating into my suit as we finished the 45-minute night pass and back in the sunlight. So again, now I'm still. So if you're working, you're going to even be more comfortable because you build up a certain amount of heat load.
Uh-huh. What were you looking at on the Earth? You remember what was?
I couldn't see the Earth at that. Yeah, it was dark, and I'm perched and looking across the shuttle bay to the opposite side. So the Earth is behind me. You can't see across the bay and then down. I'd have to turn around. Now, what I could see was I should not say that because I could see some of the Earth. I can remember now in daylight perching myself on the sill and then sort of cranking my body around. I can see the night coming. So I'm in daylight. I crank around. I pass through the terminator, that little gray line between night and day, and I'm in darkness. And then all of a sudden, and within seconds, I can feel the chill begin to beat down into my suit. So I
Wow.
activated the different devices on the suit and began to give them a rating. I used what we call the Cooper Harper scale to rate the performance of the suit. 45 minutes later, I did crank my body around a little bit. I could see the daylight coming again. So I passed through the Terminator, and then a few seconds later, I'm in sunlight. Instantly, I begin to feel the heat beat down into my suit. So yeah.
So what's it like taking that first step when you do a spacewalk?
When you take the first step, you really float out on your back, and you're down low in the payload bay. So you've got the big walls up around you, so you can't really see out. So I hooked my tether up, I floated out on my back, and then I sort of floated myself up to the sill. The big thrill is when first time I pulled myself up over the sill and looked down at the earth. And when I looked down, I could see how high we were and how fast we were going.
Wow.
I got the sensation I was just going to tumble over and fall to the ground.
Uh-huh.
And of course, you are falling. You
Right.
are falling, but I got the sensation as I was going to tumble over and fall to. Of course, I did.
Who were your
Well, that was-
spacewalking mates?
On that when I was Leroy Chow.
Okay.
Yeah, Leroy was on his second flight. So Leroy was the lead spacewalker. I was a rookie on that one, on that spacewalk. Oh, let's see. Brian Duffy was our commander. Brent Jett was my classmate, was our pilot. I was flight engineer in EVA. And Leroy Chow was lead spacewalker. Dan Barry was MS.
Yeah, I always liked
Oh,
the big
MS
smile of
Brady.
Dan Barry.
Yeah,
He's,
Dan Barry.
because he was on Survivor
That's right. That's
on
right.
there. He was
Yeah.
on that program show Survivor there. Got a question, Marty?
Yeah, Winston, you've mentioned sill several times. What is sill?
Yeah, the sill, like the window sill, it's the edge of the space shuttle payload bay. Yeah, we had foot restraints mounted on the payload bay, so we could mount ourselves on the payload bay if we wanted to. So sill is kind of like a window sill, a ledge running along the payload bay. I could anchor my boots into those foot restraints. It would hold my body in place to give me both hands free. So I didn't float away. That way I could manipulate my suit and the switches and things like that. So
A lot more to it than people think,
a
I'm
lot more
sure.
to it.
Right in
Oh,
there.
absolutely.
Roger, you haven't written a book.
No.
But Winston wrote this book, and I love it because it's just a few pages and a lot of pictures in it there. But no, I've had Winston on several times, and he knows I love this book, and I'm sure it's still available on there. He's got a great story to tell about growing up and a couple breaks that came his way, like we all need to have once in a while. Or you would have been a jazz musician, probably. He loves. Actually went on a jazz scholarship,
That's
didn't
right.
you?
That's right. So went to school to study music as a
Which
music
school?
major. Florida State University.
Florida State.
Go Noles.
Go Noles. Go Buckeyes. Where's my hat here?
Go Vols.
I'm a Buckeye. Go Vols. I like the Vols too. I've been to Neyland Stadium quite a bit myself. There. Winston, you had a dream in this that was kind of prophetic. Why don't you share? You know I love for you to share that dream.
Yeah,
you had in there.
it's really interesting. I think I was maybe 10 years old. I don't remember exactly. At my home in Miami. In the dream, I'm in the yard at our house. The grass, the house, the blue sky, the bright sunshine. And all of a sudden, I sort of began to fly. I just floated up into the air. And I floated as high as the top of the house. Then I began to fly forward along the edge of the house. And as I was flying forward, I was remarking in my mind in the dream about how bright and colorful everything is. The grass was a incredibly bright green. The sky was blue, the white clouds, and so on. And I can remember in the dream I'm trying to maneuver, trying to manipulate myself to go higher and turn left and right. I couldn't do that, but I flew along the top of the house until I got to the front. Then all of a sudden I woke up. And the dream didn't mean anything to me until 30-something years later when I'm flying in space. And I'm up on the space shuttle. And of course, there's only so much maneuvering you can do with the shuttle. I'm walking in space, only so much maneuvering you can do. But looking at the Earth, seeing those incredibly bright greens, the blues of the oceans, and the reds, the Earth is incredibly bright and colorful, reminded me of what I had seen in that dream 30-something years earlier.
That's
as a kid.
incredible, isn't it,
Really
Roger
is.
Crouch?
Amazing.
Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah. Well, your wife Ann said you have a dream.
Well, I had a dream when I was a child. I used to have this dream all the time, and I was unconstrained on mine. I could just float up, I could soar, I could go fast, I could go anywhere I wanted to. And I had that dream multiple times in various environments. And then after I've flown, I haven't had the dream since. So, and I used to have it probably monthly.
Is that right?
Wow.
Yeah.
Yes.
I talked to
Would you
James,
quit eating? Quit eating tacos or something?
I talked to James Cameron one time, and James, he was doing a study, and he says about half the people in the United States have dreams of being able to fly.
Huh.
Oh, yeah.
And I was amazed by that.
I think so.
Well, I do a lot of Saturday house cleaning to Superman on one of those retro stations there. I still would want to fly like you guys up there. So, what an experience, weightlessness, right?
Oh, it's great.
I mean, what sticks with you about that, Roger?
Just how comfortable it is. We had sleep stations because we were working 2 shifts, and we would work while the other crew would sleep, and then vice versa. And we had these things were about the size of a coffin, and you just float in there. And some people like to feel like they're in a bed, so we had straps to strap down, and some people like to have a pillow, so we'd give them a big piece of foam rubber, and they would strap that to their head, and that helped them sleep. But for me, I would just float in there, and it was the ultimate air mattress. You just no hot spots, no tossing and turning. It was great sleep. I enjoyed that.
How about you, Winston? You flew with 6 people, 7 people, Roger?
7.
Yeah, 7.
Yeah,
so you were
6,
full house
6
there.
Yeah.
You had 6,
Six
and then
on both flights.
yeah. So what was your sleeping habits
The
like?
first flight, we used sleeping bags. So you could tie your bag off any place in the shuttle you want. You find a spot on the ceiling, on the bulk in the wall, on the floor, or whatever. It didn't matter. Just find a spot, tie your bag, and then you get inside the bag and zip yourself up and sleep. The bag keeps your body from floating all over the shuttle. Second flight, we had sleep stations, the way Roger did, and because they're arranged on the wall, and you're right, it's like a coffin, and you sort of float yourself in and close up. So I experienced both the bag and the sleep station.
I think I'd say cocoon instead of coffin out there. I don't.
Nah,
I like hearing coffin. Do you?
It's like Dracula's.
Yeah, like Dracula.
Now, I heard if you had where you just zipped up and stuck yourself, that you didn't know where you woke up in the morning.
You
The crew
didn't
would
know what
move you around.
Yeah.
Marty,
Well, we could have that. We could have that occur, but I can
Marty,
see
remember Mike Baker, who we've talked to several times. Bake's
Yeah.
been on Stay Curious, 4 flights, twice commander, twice pilot. He said he wanted to. He didn't sleep good the first couple times until he put pressure on his body. He said he liked feeling. He said I got underneath some panels or something that was because I wanted to feel the pressure around my body on there. Everybody has.
And that's where the straps would
That's
come in
straps.
that Roger was talking about. You can strap yourself down and feel the pressure.
Well, hope you're enjoying this conversation with Roger Crouch beside me here. How many days in space?
Almost 21. I think.
It's almost 21, and Winston's 2 flights. You got about
24.
24 in there.
25,
So,
yeah, something like that.
just wonderful people out there still giving it away. Over 300 American shuttle astronauts out there. You all do work really hard at promoting everything out there. I want to show a couple other slides here, and then we're just going to talk about some current events. There's Winston at our Shuttle Fest event. We're so happy
Can't
that you
believe I got
support us on that.
almost the same thing on.
Yeah, you do.
Yeah,
It's just-
same jacket.
Yeah,
White
yeah,
shirt.
yeah. You and
You've got
Nikki,
the same
Nikki
name
Stott
tag.
just run out with your blue jacket all the time there. What a wonderful time we had at Shuttle Fest. Our 4th Shuttle Fest is April 12th. It's going to celebrate the 35th anniversary of the Hubble. Story Musgrave knows that story well. He's going to hopefully be part of our Hubble Huggers. You got the late Hugh Harris there, who died at age 91, did about 2 years of monthly shows with us here. We had a lot of fun. Mike McCulley.
Now, Mike's. I'm from a very small town in Tennessee, about 2,000 people, and Mike's from a town with about 2,500.
Yeah,
people,
Livingston.
About 30 miles away from where I.
Oh, is that
my
right?
own town,
Okay.
yeah.
And your town is
Jamestown.
Jamestown. Okay, up on near the Kentucky border.
Yeah.
Nicole Stott, and you just changed one letter, and you got Winston Scott. Stott and Scott
Yes,
there
indeed.
with
Absolutely.
launch director and great supporter of our museum. Bob Seek launched 57 shuttles, still going strong. If I can remember what Bob said about the movie, I'll share that when we get to that there. little get-togethers like this, what do they mean to you, Roger, to see some of the astronaut friends? Of course, you were mission specialist.
All these guys like Scott are my heroes, and so just being around them and listening to their stories is a real thrill for me. So.
Well, we feel the same way. See, Roger is a true scientist. I mean, the true sense of the word.
Mm-hmm.
People like me, I'm not a true scientist. I'm a pilot by engineer by.
But you're top gun.
Yeah, but he's a top gun.
I have actually gone and listened to Roger's presentations at Astronaut Encounter and some of the true science work that he and his compatriots do up there. That's the real reason we go to space. We don't go just to ride up and back. We go so guys like this can really advance.
I'm going to go out and hear you again on Wednesday or Thursday when you're speaking out there, Roger. And another friend we've made at the museum here is Charlie Walker.
Oh, yeah.
And boy, 3 flights in 15 months.
And he was a payload specialist.
Yeah,
also.
right, yeah. And
Charlie will be out there. I can't remember the date.
why he's not in the Hall of Fame, that's he think he deserves it, but you all deserve it eventually in there. Well, we're going to look at a couple other things. Winston, of course, passionate about the trumpet and his idol Miles Davis. What song should we listen to if we want to know what it's like to be?
The ultimate space song, in my opinion, is "In a Silent Way." It's Miles Davis, Jazz Album of the Year, 1968.
And he's right. It's a very good song. I told Winston I was listening to it all morning, knowing he was coming in. There's a lot of little funky sounds in the background,
Sounds
and
like
you can almost hear
space
somebody
music,
breathing, on an EVA there. But of course, Miles Davis, one of the greats of any kind of genre music on there. And but let's go. Delaware North is where you two all get together. You inherited some big shoes, Winston Scott, from Big John McBride. Bruce Melnick.
Right.
Bruce was just sort of the
interim.
interim coach there. That's the way I look at Bruce. And I love Bruce
Acting
Melnick.
wrangler. Right?
Yeah, right. He did it a couple years
Can't
there.
fill Big John's shoes.
20 years ago, Big John was out there, John McBride. Tell us a little bit about that. Theron Protze, the CEO out there, they do a great job. He supports our museum. We love how they're keeping things clean and changing things all the time. We understand the administration building's going to be redone where your office is, Winston, and over the next year or so. Tell us about what it's like to go from working for George Abbey and NASA people to working at Delaware North.
Actually, I tell you, it's a lot of fun. Delaware North is the concessionaire that actually runs the visitor complex. So for folks who are listening, when you come to Florida, you've got to come to visit the Kennedy Space Center Visitor Complex. It's open 363 days a year, only closed on Christmas Day and New Year's Day. And every day of the year, there is an astronaut on site, a flown astronaut like Roger and some of the other folks. And they're there to give presentations, but also for you to get up close and personal with them. You can take pictures, shake hands, get autographs, and so on. The visitor complex is not... It is an active place where you do stuff. You can touch it, feel it, ride in it, crawl around on it, and so on. So it's a great place to come and visit for the whole family, from the young children all the way up to grandma and grandpa. So please, when you come to Florida, you've got to visit the visitor complex. I guarantee you'll enjoy it.
It is. The foreign traffic there's unbelievable,
Absolutely.
Of course, and
Absolutely.
we live in paradise, Roger and Winston. I've lived here 7 years, and of course I miss the mountains a little bit. You know what I'm talking about up there. You can hide in the mountains quicker than you can hide on the ocean around here. All right, but as if I'm not hiding from anybody. Okay, but you know what I love doing is looking over my shoulder and seeing that VAB. That's sort of like our Devil's Tower around here. Do you guys feel the same way? Like wherever you go, once you get on a causeway and you look up and see that VAB, I go, wow. Now I get to look at that every day. How do you feel about that, Roger?
Well, we checked into our motel today and just opened the curtain, and there's the VAB just across the river. It's an amazing place. Taking a tour of that place will just astound you. I don't do tours anymore down the center, do they?
They do on the outside. I don't think you can go inside right now. Because they're prepping it for launch, but
because of the SRBs in there
Right,
for the Artemis.
well, they do the bus tours.
Yeah.
But it is an incredible facility.
It's bigger than you can imagine almost. It's got an American flag out there where the stripes in the flag are the width of an automobile lane on the highway.
Yeah, yeah, it's amazing. And the American flag's what, a basketball court or something like that on there. But yeah, quite a place. We don't take it for granted living here. Wanted to throw your wife Marilyn in there, just so Marilyn knows that you're thinking of her there. We've got Roger's wife Ann in here.
So you scored
Always
well.
enjoy seeing her.
I did. She put up with me all these years. Meg in college had been together all these years.
And so when I see her at events, Winston, I always go up to her because no one's around her for some reason, as pretty as she is. And I said, hey, you need someone to talk to while Winston's busy? And always a charming lady there.
Well, thank you. She's a joy.
So just going to kind of shoot some slides up there for Roger and Winston to talk about. 55 years ago, the Apollo 11 crews headed back with their booty of 70 pounds of rock. And Marty worked on that with the Grumman lunar module. And he and a lot of the other Apollo people say we would have never done it if President Kennedy hadn't been assassinated and the impetus to do his dream. We would have done it if he was alive, but it probably been in 70, 71, been tighter. Yeah. What do y'all feel about the celebrations? Have we lost touch with it? Is it still mankind's greatest adventure?
Well, when I was about 10 years old, I saw a movie called Destination Moon. And at the end of it, this was before there were any space agencies or anything, the director says, this is the end of the beginning. And I thought, that's a frontier I want to explore. And since there weren't space agencies, I decided to just go on to college to see what happened. And then Kennedy made his speech where he says, before this decade's out, we want to go to the moon and bring him back alive. And it was on my birthday. And I thought, boy, this is an omen. I'm going to be an astronaut.
Now, which was that the May birthday?
No, September.
Okay, September.
Yeah.
That was in front of Rice University in September because he talked to Congress in May. And so we'll remember that on your birthday coming up here September. On there we celebrate those. That's some Chris Calley artwork there, Marty. Our good friend Chris. Let me put that.
I always admired President Kennedy, and for a number of reasons. But the biggest reason was I was just a kid back then when he made that announcement, and but as I grew older, I wasn't necessarily political, but I admired him for inspiring us to put a person on the moon and actually make it happen. Yeah. Now that I'm older, I always admire him for that, but I also admire him as a naval officer. Kennedy was a Navy officer, PT boat commander. Yeah. And his boat was shot out from under him in Korea, I think it was. So the Navy figures prominent. World War II? Yeah, thank you. But the Navy figures prominently in the space program. Right.
Winston's a top gun in the Navy there. How many aircraft carrier landings?
Olga, 200.
200? Wow. Which one you want to tell me about?
They all ended in success. Thank you.
Yeah. Well, that's some chops there. We just had John Harrington on here too. John was there about a couple months ago with his wife, and we enjoyed John. We got his interview in the can.
I scheduled John to come in.
Hope you have him back. He's a good storyteller too. And of course, Chickasaw Nation.
John was a naval aviator.
Yeah, he's Navy. I
think it was anti-submarine warfare, ASW.
Yeah. Kay Heyer, another person.
Naval
you need to come to the luncheon that the good old boys and girls in NASA do. Well, I'll send you that when you can come to that once in a while. It's the first Wednesday of the month.
Do that, yes.
So I'll Lisa Malone has that now.
I know.
Yes, indeed. And that reminds me of something with both of you guys. I'm privileged to go to this luncheon once a month, and Jay Honeycutt's there sometimes. Jim Adamson, astronaut, comes. Okay. And Jim Adamson, a lot of people don't know him as an astronaut because he chose not to go into the public. So I asked both of you. That's a conscious decision you made, right, Roger, that you want to be out in the public and put yourself out there. Because some of the astronauts say, and Kay Heyer's another one, she doesn't do much. Because once you start, it's hard to stop.
Yeah, it is hard. You get an awful lot of requests, and it's hard to say no to any of them. But for me, I was so thrilled when I was working at Langley Research Center, and John Young and Bob Crippen came there after their flight. And I was just like a giddy little kid. I felt like a teeny bopper, seeing the Beatles or something like that, to see two astronauts live. And since that time, I've experienced meeting people who were inspired by just that meeting. And I just feel obligated because there may be another opportunity that somebody sees me and says, well, with an accent like that, I know I can certainly be an astronaut. and I hope that's what happens when I give talks.
Well, Jim Adamson, for example, great guy, West Pointer, was on a DOD mission and then STS-43, and he's wary of being out there because he's kind of in a political area of management in the NASA machine. That he says, once I start, I can't, people won't stop asking me. And how do you turn down your high school president or something like that? Winston, speak a little about that. You're one of the hardest working people out there with Nicole Stott and Don Thomas and others that are constantly giving your time out there. But like Mike McCulley's finally said, I've had enough. My wife Jane and I are just going to enjoy what we got left. So you relate to that, don't you, Winston?
Absolutely. I consider, I'm like Roger, I consider it an obligation to get out into the public, especially in front of the young people, one of the kids, and inspire them. And you joked about the accent, but as a minority, I want to talk to everybody, but especially want to let young kids from minority communities, African American and Hispanic communities, and so on, ensure they understand that space program is available to anybody. If you go to school, you work hard, you qualify, you get to do this. And of course, our nation needs talent from every part of the community. So I consider it part of my obligation to give back to the community and to make myself available, hopefully to inspire some young people to rise up to do great things.
Well, you certainly do and have, and that's it'll be a sad day when you don't be doing the outreach you do, and because you do it in all areas. Just admire out there. Talking about the International Space Station with Winston Scott, and we've Roger Crouch here. Of course, both of them never went to the International Space Station. Do you think parts of it will be saved, Winston? How do you think that's going to happen?
I would hope so. I just read what NASA now is beginning to look at deorbiting the space station. They have awarded a contract, I guess, to SpaceX to formally study deorbiting, which is a little strange because when it was built, it was built with the deorbit capability or plan to deorbit it. I would like to see us keep it up there as long as possible, as long as it's functioning and we can repair it, keep it up for a reasonable price. We could not afford to replace it. If we can afford to keep it in orbit and get some use out of it, I'd like to see it stay up there as long as possible.
Well, based on the decisions that came along to end the shuttle program, I think probably they'll deorbit the thing and burn it up. And then I think we'll have a big gap before we get the inflatables so we can have another space station up there. And I think it's just nearsighted. I mean, of course, this is controversial, I guess, but my opinion is it's really short-sighted to not have a blending from where we are to where we want to be. And
absolutely.
Yeah, but NASA's never done that.
That's true.
Never done it.
The end of the Apollo era was as devastating economically to the Space Coast as the end of the shuttle was here. And it's a crime to turn all this talent loose, and then they've got to go work somewhere else. We're going to go through a few slides here, and in our little conversation with these wonderful astronauts. There's our SpaceX. Because they've been stood down because of the anomaly with the second stage. Our dogs aren't barking in the middle of the night, those noisy rockets going off left and right here. But after all, they had 325 missions without an anomaly.
Really? Whoa.
Yeah.
Incredible record.
So, what's your take on that, Winston?
SpaceX
Mr. Musk has done.
He's doing a great job. Elon Musk is a true visionary. He has revolutionized access to space. I just applaud everything he's doing. and I'm sure they'll be up and flying again soon. They'll get that anomaly figured out, and they'll be up and flying again
Yeah,
soon.
maybe later this week
Absolutely.
even on there.
Yeah.
Roger, quite amazing. You anxious to see that starship go off again?
Actually, yeah, I agree with everything that Winston's saying. Musk is he's just an incredible visionary. I think not just a visionary, but a doer.
A doer,
of his vision.
absolutely.
Yeah, doer. Put his money where his mouth is,
Absolutely.
right?
And accomplish stuff that we say. You
Yeah,
couldn't
we're
do.
gonna. It takes visionaries like this. You see all the time. Tesla, Edison,
Yes.
those type of people changed our lives. There's the Boeing slide there. You know, this Calypso. This is the third trip to space for Calypso. People don't realize that it's a reused spaceship, and we've talked about it. I feel confident that the spaceship's good for reentry. It's going to land in the desert. There's we show there. Probably, I think in a couple of weeks. Well, you hear anything about that, Winston?
I haven't. It keeps getting pushed back. But they have an incredibly difficult troubleshooting issue because the engineers and technicians doing the troubleshooting are on the ground, whereas the capsule's in space. So they're trying to troubleshoot long distance. So that complicates the situation. But they're going to gather as much data as they can before they make a decision. The crew is safe as long as they're on station. The big question is what happens when they board that capsule, undock, and come home. And of course, we want them to come home safely. So all the troubleshooting they can possibly do ahead of time is what we want done.
But they're not stranded in
No,
space.
they're not stranded. No, not at all.
That's such a poor headline.
That's right.
And I'm kind of happy for Butch and Sonny that they get to spend that extra time up
I
there.
think they're having a ball.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, and there's
No,
plenty of
they're not
food right
stranded.
up there for them. They got
Plenty of food.
stashed food
Yeah.
everywhere up there.
They do.
So thank you for commenting about that, and have a little bit of Artemis up there, the Kennedy Space Center Visitors Complex, the gateway, so well done there, and going to the moon with Artemis. Still a lot to work out, but so there was with Apollo 55 years ago. Roger, what do you think about the Artemis going to the moon?
Well, the sooner the better, and the safer the better. I'm glad we're going back. I just hate that it's been so long.
Yeah. Oh, me too. Me too. Thought we'd have Winston. You got any comment about just the November,
Yeah.
December 2025 is the next scheduled launch.
Yeah, if I can figure out a way to stow away
Oh, yeah.
Really?
Artemis. Yeah, I'd like to make that trip. I'd love to go to the moon. Man. That
All
would be a cool trip.
Well, that's my dream.
Well, you stay in excellent health the way you are. Maybe we'll get you up there.
Even when I talk to young kids, I say, if any of you ever get to be a billionaire, I want you to start a new program called 100-Year-Old Man on the Moon.
Yes,
Remember my name.
Yeah.
Maybe Winston.
You're ready to go, huh,
Winston and I'll
Roger?
go together.
Absolutely.
All right, that's good. Well, we have this slide here to show about the end of the program. These are the last iconic images of the emblems, logos for after 114. And the last shuttle landed at night. If they'd gone one extra pass, they'd landed in the daytime. But should we have kept flying it, Roger? What's your insight onto that?
I would like to have seen him fly it. There was a risk every time we flew. And the fact that we lost a couple were really human mistakes more than mechanical mistakes, I think. I just hate quitting on anything. I believe we should persevere.
Though the program was well oiled. Winston, I've always commented with Terry White, who's on our show as a shuttle manager and other people. You got your pink slip 2 years before you left your job, and yet the excellence was even better. Everybody that has to do with those shuttles said the last three came back in great shape.
Absolutely. Well, the thing about
How do you maintain the workforce's attitude, though, when
Oh,
you're
my-
going to be
well,
fired?
Yeah, well, certainly it must have been a very, very difficult time for people who were still active and working in the program at that time. It was difficult for those of us who had retired. I was on some panels and boards, and we recommended to the administration to keep flying the shuttle until the replacement was in place. Of course, that did not happen. But the shuttles were safer when we retired them than they were at any point in the history. Because when we have an accident or whatever, it's a hard lesson learned, but we do learn and we improve it. So I'd like to have seen us keep flying those shuttles longer than we did.
Well, that's a definitive thing to everybody that worked on them. I think probably should have kept one for Defense Department purposes and a loan on there. So, enjoyed talking to you guys. I want to ask you a question here that if you don't want to answer, that's fine. But there's some concerns about space flyers like yourself getting Parkinson's and dementia. And there's some people I talk to that think there's a little more of a percentage of astronauts that have had Parkinson's than maybe should have, or dementia. Do you guys subscribe to that at all, Roger?
You know, what was that?
Yes. Well, your wife will take you to the car now.
Well, you have to be careful.
And feed you.
You have to be careful making decisions on limited data.
Yeah.
And, you know, I don't think there's any definitive data that would say that going to space damages your brain. Maybe long stays where you're exposed to more cosmic rays could have some changes, but
Kidneys are something they're looking at that changed a little bit on there. But
in the shuttle program, you weren't up there long enough, I don't think, to really endanger yourself. So,
Winston, what do you think about that? Any
Yeah.
health risks that you've experienced or anything like that? And,
I don't think so. And of course, as Roger will tell you, they bring us back every year for the physical, and a very, very thorough physical.
every
So
year,
they can-
all
every-
and
oh, yeah, for the rest of
astronauts
your
get
day,
a
your rest of your
physical.
life. Yeah, you go
Okay.
back and because they're building this database so that we can make at one point we'll have enough data we can begin to make really science-based decisions about health. So it's really too early. I don't believe we're seeing an inordinate amount of space-related ailments here. But again, it's just so early.
All right,
It's
that's
just-
good.
The
That's
sample
fair.
size is too small.
so what'd you say? 377 people have flown.
Yeah.
Anytime they do a drug test or anything like that, 377 people is just not even in question. You have to have a lot more. than
Yes,
that.
yeah, thousands and
To get a
thousands. Yeah,
valid
selective sampling skews a lot of things out there. My phone's ringing there, but that's okay as we're ending our conversation here. Maybe one final thought here from you folks about a real giant of NASA who's not well known. Mr. George Abbey passed away. He was well known for the guy you had to get through to be an astronaut, Winston. Do you remember your interview with Mr. Abbey?
When I was selected, George Abbey was in D.C.
Okay.
And Don Putty was over flight crew operations at the time I was selected. So Don Putty was the person who ran selections when I came. Now I got to meet Mr. Abbey. He came back to Johnson Space Center while I was active and attended some meetings with him and got to know him, and then actually traveled with him on a trip to Ireland.
Oh,
at
really?
one point. So I got to him a little bit, not as well as some of the folks before me, but very, very interesting, very knowledgeable, a pioneer in American space program.
Yeah, he was. What do you say,
Well
Roger?
said.
Well said. Mr. Abbey's a character for sure, and I've learned a lot of.
He's a really smart guy. You got to give him that.
Yeah.
And he had a lot of things going on in his mind all the time.
All the time.
Talking about George Abbey there, who was over Johnson Space Center and involved with selecting astronauts. And I've heard some interesting stories we'll talk about off air there. So, gentlemen, thank you for your time. This was an impromptu gathering that we recorded with Roger Crouch, Winston Scott. Hope that Winston, you convert him to being a good friend, and we got to meet your wife, Ann, over here, and the Quilts of Valor. What an important organization that is. And we hope that you all will visit their website and be involved with that. Gentlemen, something that you wanted to say that I didn't ask you before? Parting shot.
Yeah, just thank you so much for this. I always enjoy coming up here and doing the podcast, so hopefully I get to do many more of
Well,
these.
good, Winston.
And thanks
Thank you.
again to Quilts of Valor. I'm truly, totally honored, and thank you
Sure.
very much.
Yeah, great to have you on,
Yeah,
Winston, as
thank
usual.
you.
And
Yeah.
Roger, great to meet you.
Yeah.
And he's just a regular guy that got to go to space and spend 20-some days up there enjoying it and go out and hear his story as he tells it to all kinds of people from all over the world out at Kennedy Space Center Visitors Complex, the Astronaut Encounter program that Nick Thomas is our astronaut wrangler. He'll be wrangling you out there this weekend out there. So thank you both very much. Thank you all for watching. Until next time, I'm Marquette saying I can't wait to see you again to bridge the space between us.
Thanks, Bart.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks,
Appreciate
Mark.
you.
Yeah.